Morning, Justin. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, good morning, Taylor. I'm well. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
What do you think about all these drones, like this drone situation that's going on in at New
Uh,
Jersey and maybe in other locations too? Like, do you think it's as it's being represented, or do you think there's some hysteria going on with like people, social hysteria that can happen with these types of things? Like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on what's going on with that?
so I am probably the wrong person to ask. I know you've had my friend Rich Brown on, and Rich
Yeah.
put you and I in touch. To Rich's eternal frustration, I don't watch the news and I don't have social media. I figure if anything's big enough, if any news story's big enough, it will eventually get to me just through the zeitgeist. And I am aware of this, but I'm aware the FBI arrested someone in Boston yesterday, or a couple of people
Oh,
maybe.
okay.
But I don't know. It doesn't really affect my day to day. So honestly, I don't really care.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's also just so much speculation about what it could be and a thousand different theories. And from aliens to there's a nuclear weapon somewhere loose in the United States to all this different. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, people. Like, first of all, like, we're not in a Tom Clancy novel. I honestly think either it's a bunch of MIT nerds that are getting a laugh because they're freaking everyone out and they program
Right.
some autonomous drones to do some, random routes and make it look like something else, or it's some defense contractor that's doing some DARPA level project that these senators are not read into. And but all the other theories just sound so outlandish and more so just people fantasizing about some end of the world as we know it or World War III scenario.
Right. It's funny. In the early 2000s, we used drones basically unfettered to blow people up in all these third party countries. And now some unarmed drones are flying over our country and are freaking out about it.
Yeah. Or then another thing I thought about the other day is, and this is more of the, I'm least likely to believe this, but maybe the government is like, hey, you know what? We don't like how lax our drone guidelines and legislation is right now. Let's freak the American public out with some drones and then pave the way to increase legislation on drones, because they'll be like, oh yeah, we need laws so that this doesn't happen again. But I don't know. No
So,
one
so
really
I,
knows.
so I don't really buy into those kinds of conspiracy theories. Let's make something happen so then we can pass a law. Because I've
Yeah,
worked in government on federal, state, and local levels, and government doesn't work like that.
it's too bureaucratic.
Right, right. It's either let's try to pass a law and make this happen, or not. I think the most recent big thing that I was personally affected by was Hurricane Helene and the cloud seeding theory. So I'm like, that's such a convoluted conspiracy theory. I'm not really even sure where it ends, but let's make it rain a lot so things are destroyed so people vote for Democrats, I guess. I don't know.
I know, it's ridiculous. Well, speaking of drones, I think that ties into privacy and ties into something that you are very familiar with. And I want to talk about your book, The Complete Privacy and Security Desk Reference. What motivated you to write that book? And then let's get into that.
Ooh, so that's a throwback. That thing's almost approaching 10 years old now, and I'm sure it's very out of date. And to be fair, I only co-wrote it. My co-author and I are no longer working together, but so I guess a little bit of backstory is in order. And you picked a good time to talk about this because I'm kind of getting back into the writing about digital security stuff. I worked at the Marine Special Operations Schoolhouse for 5 years. I taught for the technical surveillance program there,
Hmm.
and I was a student in the very first technical surveillance course. And they had, a very, very, when I say a little, I mean like an hour of digital security stuff in the first couple of days of the course. And someone had been to a class and knew enough to kind of give us a little bit of, just a little bit of push in that direction.
Yeah.
It really bit with me. And I'm like, this is something I need to learn more about. And I went to some classes. I've been to some very cool classes about it. Blackbird Technologies used to teach this 3-part series called Electronic Security and Signature Reduction to soft
Hmm.
personnel. And, your big marker that you'd been to that. So everybody got a free little netbook with a, external Wi-Fi antenna. So that was kind of a status symbol. I went to that 2 or 3 times. And it just lit a fire. And all I would do every
Yeah.
night when I got home from work is go home and research Wi-Fi security or Wi-Fi hacking or whatever.
Hmm.
And eventually, by the time I left the schoolhouse, I had 2 full days. I was teaching this myself. I had 2 full days of digital security in the technical surveillance course. So I was teaching probably stuff that was personally interesting to me, maybe not super useful to students in that context. Some of it, a lot of it was, I still believe, but just led down a rabbit hole of basically writing a student handout, which ended up expanding to like 40, 50 pages, and nobody wanted to print it at the schoolhouse, which led to like, screw it, why don't I just write a book about this? So I wrote a couple of books that I'm pretty clunky by my standard now. Your Ultimate Security Guide to Windows 10 and Your Ultimate Security Guide to iOS, whatever it was back then, which were just like real step-by-step guides to, this is my philosophy on securing these operating systems, and a plan to carry that out. But it's actually tremendous. Like, I would just never stop writing if I tried to keep up with all the updates and all that. So
Right.
I met Michael Basil. He taught a class. We brought him down to the schoolhouse to teach a class on open source intelligence collection. He and I kind of hit it off and ended up co-writing 2 volumes. Volume 1 was digital stuff, and Volume 2 was physical security of the Complete Privacy and Security Desk Reference. We had a podcast by the same name that I co-hosted and produced the first, I believe, 97 episodes of. So yeah, that used to be pretty much an all-consuming passion of mine. I did enough that a lot of those habits just became kind of ingrained in my day-to-day life, and I didn't have to think about it all the time. It actually landed me a super lucrative job in DC with a startup. And once I left there, I kind of just kind of faded in the background as far as blogging and teaching and talking about that stuff. But kind of circling back to it with a chapter of a book that I'm currently writing, but we can talk about that later, or not at all, at your preference.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm sure we will. How did you and Basil get introduced or like connected?
So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Social Engineer podcast with Chris Hadnagy. He also has written several books on social engineering. He's kind of the
I think I am familiar with that podcast.
Yeah, Hadnagy's kind of the industry recognized pioneer in codifying social engineering. The first book was called Social Engineering: The Art of Human Hacking. I think edition 2 is The Science of Human Hacking. Very good books. We brought Hadnagy down.
It's got like a marionette looking person on the cover, doesn't it?
Yeah. Maybe a skeleton.
Yeah,
that's it. We brought Hadnagy down to teach his 5-day social engineering for penetration testers class. I started listening to his podcast. He had, actually, it wasn't even Basil on. There was a British guy, I can't remember his name, but talking about Basil's OSINT book. And that led me to Basil's other books. And so I talked to our course director and said, can we bring him down to teach an OSINT class? And that's how we met.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, and for those listening, can you explain like penetration testing and OSINT? Because some of the people might
so OSINT, I think that term is thrown around maybe a little freely in the open source community, in the civilian community. As a former intelligence professional, OSINT is a finalized intelligence product, whereas raw information you gather is really just information. But that's what everybody calls it in the hacking space, is OSINT. Anything you can collect from the open source, the internet, from calling a company and asking any number of questions. It may not be directly the question you want, but will lead to the answer. Anything that you don't have to, I guess, commit a crime, like break into somewhere or hack into something to get. Anything that people will give you through their social media profiles, through company websites, through
the number of kids you have by the number of the stick figures on the back of your car.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So that's OSINT. Penetration testing is ethical hacking, kind of synonymous with the ethical hacking community, of seeing how far you can get into a company without raising an alarm, and then provide a report back to stakeholders in the company of you're giving away all this information because your people are poorly educated, or you have bad security practices, or this, that, or the other. So there's some awesome videos on YouTube of the social engineering Capture the Flag that Chris Hadnagy runs every year out at DEF CON. And it's basically people, they're given a company, they're allowed to research it passively, and then they get one phone call when they show up at DEF CON, participants in this game, to get as much information as they possibly can. And it is, man, the amount of, the gift of gab that some people have is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I've watched some of those DEF CON conferences, and it's that was redundant. but I've watched some of those conferences, and it's pretty interesting, like what they can do and the how esoteric it is, and people just have no idea like the vulnerabilities that exist, and it's pretty wild. So yeah, if no one's heard of that, I'll put some links in the description for you to check that out. But it's pretty just understand you're not going to really comprehend half of what they're saying, but it's pretty interesting to see like what vulnerabilities exist. Can you talk about the difference? Circling back to your book, what's the difference between privacy and security?
So security would be defending from basically defense from some sort of human threat, and to disambiguate between security and safety, which is also sometimes intertwined or confused with those. Safety is prevention of or mitigation of threats from non-human sources. Security would be, your company may have security and safety goals that contradict each other. Like very easy access to and from a building would let you escape in a fire, which is a good safety measure, not a great security measure if you're trying to keep someone out. Privacy is keeping your information close hold, basically. So you can have excellent security on your Instagram account with a very good password and two-factor authentication and things like that. That makes it very hard for someone to hack into your account, but very poor privacy if you post photos of your company badge, if if you work in a sensitive facility or something like that, or photos of your children in front of their school where someone could see where they go to school. And again, the specific threat varies depending on what you're trying to protect and what your vulnerabilities are. But the difference between privacy and security is those measures that are designed to keep people out when they actually try to get in, be it physically or digitally. Privacy is trying to just prevent giving that information out through passive means.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Getting into more of the details on that, you said you have books on iOS, and then did you say? No, I'm sorry. You said like Mac and then Windows. What are your thoughts on the difference between like iPhone and Android? I know there's kind of a constant debate between those two systems and which one offers more or less privacy and security.
They both have their benefits. Absolutely. Thing I like about a lot of the Android builds, some of the privacy focused Android builds, and there are several out there, is you can manipulate those to be very, very private. You can have a lot of control over the operating system. I use an iPhone, and the reason is very, very simple. It's malicious software. Android, no matter what you do to it, it's still going to be an open operating system that is manipulable by any number of third parties. Apple has the walled garden, love it or hate it. It's very hard to get malware into it. And malware is, kind of the root level thing. It's kind of the foundational thing you have to defend against. If you have malicious software installed on your device, it doesn't matter what secure communication software you're using, because they're just copying whatever you say directly off your screen or your keyboard. It doesn't matter what high-speed, low-drag VPN you're using if they're just getting your stuff directly off of your device. Malware is the underlying biggest threat. It doesn't matter how what gun you carry when you're out in public if somebody's hiding in your closet at your house, right?
Right.
It's keeping somebody out of that house. And I try to relate a lot of these things to physical security measures that people understand better. But yeah, malware is the single biggest threat out there. It's everywhere. There's no website you can go to that is safe. Any website could be suspect. Some very reputable websites have just sold an advertising space to somebody who has either wittingly or unwittingly served malware to everybody who clicked on that advertisement. Like just a million and one ways to get malware, including some no-click attacks. And iOS is not.
I was going to ask you about those zero-day attacks and how common those are.
Well, we don't really know because we don't find out about them until they're end-day attacks, right? So they, we don't really know. And iOS, Apple is not invulnerable. It's not the perfect solution. But
Pegasus.
Much more malware is pointed at the Android operating system. Something like 95% of the malware in the wild is pointed at the Android operating system, just because of proliferation. I love people who say the Apple sheep, because everybody's Apple and whatever. Like 86% of the world is on Android. So it's just a much bigger attack surface, and it's much easier to target. There's just many more people who are capable of writing malware for the Android operating system. Apple malware targeted against iOS specifically is just much more sophisticated. It has to be. again, I don't want to give you a false sense of security. If a government's after you, it doesn't matter what phone you're carrying. If they're targeting you specifically, or if you're playing on a big enough playing field, probably just shouldn't carry a phone. But for the average user, I think iOS is my choice just because of the malware mitigation.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I know there's been discussions about what was it, the unplugged phone, Eric Prince's unplugged phone thing that he came out with. But
Man,
even on that, and
I saw that
like
on
your
Sean.
opinion. Yeah,
I saw that on Sean
Show.
Ryan's show, and I was like, man, I'm gonna go check this out. The thing I don't like about it is you have to buy a suite of software for it, which you can buy for any phone. You can buy the unplugged software for any phone, but anybody you talk to securely has to buy that same software. And there's so many secure messaging apps out
really?
there.
I didn't know that.
Free.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's like $12 a month too. It's not, or maybe $12 a year. I don't know. But
gosh.
who are you going to talk into buying that?
Yeah.
It's like, I think the concept
that's kind of like the
awesome.
blue, what is it, like the blue versus the green bubble thing, where it's like you text someone, that's like that to the next level. It's like no longer is it just a blue and green bubble, and issues with sending certain pictures and granularity with that, but now it's like, oh, now you have to buy this specific phone and service to message me.
Yes.
Well, and something else with that I thought about after reading an article on the iPhone's lockdown mode is, which I've tested that before, the iPhone's lockdown mode, and is when you do that, there's almost this thing that happens whenever you connect to websites. For example, I think with lockdown mode, it doesn't load special fonts, and the website actually gets notified of that. And so when you use those modes, there's a chance of almost skylining yourself as someone of interest, because only certain people use lockdown mode, and only certain people are going to buy the unplugged phone. Now, some are buying it because, again, they think they live in a Tom Clancy novel, but others are buying it because they're a high-profile journalist or some other state actor, and they're trying to, protect themselves. And in those situations, I feel like you could be skylining yourself and identifying yourself as a person of interest and as a target, as opposed to the gray man with just an iPhone. And
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
If you ever find yourself in a situation where you have to use deadly force to defend yourself or to defend someone else, then you're going to want a good legal team defending you after the fact. And that's why I trust attorneys on retainer. And if you want to see how AOR compares to those other CCW insurance providers, then scan this QR code or check out my affiliate link in the description. They have individual and family plans so that you will be legally protected should you ever need to protect your life or someone else's life. And don't forget to use promo code DAD to save $25 on your initial sign up.
I mean, any of these interventions, if you use, an encrypted email service, encrypted messenger of some sort, a VPN, pretty much any kind of security software, you put yourself in a pretty small group of people. And these things are definitely gaining in popularity. I'm sure you've heard of Signal Private Messenger.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that.
Very popular private messaging software. They were around for a while in two different, there was the Messenger app, and then they had a separate phone app called Red Phone, I think, for encrypted calling, but it didn't work very well. And then finally they merged, and then Edward Snowden gave them a shout out, and they got super, super popular. Now they're pretty much the default. I'm surprised sometimes when I add someone, a new contact to my phone, and they show up in my Signal app. I'm like, oh, I never would have thought this person would have this.
Yeah.
And the thing I like about it doesn't matter if you're on iPhone, Android, like we still have a data connection with good, back to your picture granularity thing. We can still text each other pictures that are high quality and, all that good stuff. And it's encrypted end to end very, very well. But Signal is very popular, pretty much. But that's a relative popularity, right? That's popular among, people who have downloaded some sort of security software. And most of my circle are law enforcement officers, military. I don't deal with the general public all that much. So my perspective is probably a little bit skewed. You're in a pretty small bucket of people that have downloaded those applications. How much does that matter? I don't really know. Honestly, I don't think it probably matters all that much. Like law enforcement, has, has like child molesters and murderers to find. I don't know if they're worried about tracking everybody who has Signal on their phone. I'm going to say probably not. Yeah, you do maybe skyline yourself a little bit. And there's certain usage patterns that are really, really weird. So for a long time, I had an iPhone that I paid for in cash. I bought a prepaid plan that required no identification. I didn't change, I didn't change anything. I left the name as AT&T customer or whatever. Just paid, I paid the bill in cash every month. And I never once made a call or sent a text from the actual phone number associated with that phone. I used, a variety of apps. That's a really weird usage pattern. That phone is sending all kinds of data, but never making a phone call, never sending a message. Whose phone does that? Nobody's. So that probably creates some, and goes in a Faraday bag all the time and gets put in airplane mode and all this. That's a really, really strange usage pattern. That probably is high enough to catch somebody's eye. Just to be honest, that's like terrorist phone. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And going back to, oh my gosh, what was the app called? The messenger app?
Signal.
Was it Signal? Yeah. Was that the one that allowed Pegasus to get on iOS?
I don't know, but maybe.
Because Pegasus was the 0-day attack, right? Where you didn't even need to click, and
zero click.
Zero click, yeah. And I couldn't remember if it was the native messaging app or if it was Signal, and for those listening, I'd prefer you to explain what that means. 0-click attack.
So a lot of a great number of attacks require you to take some sort of action. So it might be, a PDF with some sort of scripts embedded that, you get an email that says invoice in the subject line, you open it up and there's some scary message like, here's your invoice. Your credit card has been charged $497.58. And you're like, what the heck is this for? And so you open that attached PDF and there's some sort of, that's the action that's required is, we found this vulnerability that if someone opens a PDF, this script can execute, give us a foothold to then, then install whatever malware. That is not a no-click attack. That requires action on the user's part. Or you get some sort of little pop-up that says, do you want to, and it can say anything it wants to be. It should say, do you want to install the software? Yes or no. And you click yes and it installs it. But it might say something like, do you want to connect to this untrusted network? And you're going to click no, but no really means yes. So you made a click, you've made something happen.
No means yes.
Yeah. They can label those buttons however they want. Those are still difficult to pull off, but there's a big barrier there because a lot of users are going to be like, this is weird. I'm just going to turn my phone off and back on and see what happens. A no-click attack means someone can target your phone and install this on here with you taking no action whatsoever. You don't have to, and they've gained some sort of administrator access where they don't require you to approve that. That's basically the stumbling block for all of these attacks that require some action is they require you to approve that action or to open up some specific type of file to make that happen. No-click attacks are really dangerous because they don't require any user interaction at all. Someone could just remotely do that. And those are really fairly rare. And they're used sparingly, right? Because criminality as a service is expensive. They have people, sitting in office buildings in, Bulgaria or I don't know, whatever Eastern European country that, get paid sick days and vacation days and come in from 9 to 5 and complain about their boss and take smoke breaks and eat lunch. And all day long, they write malware. And they're getting paid good money to do this, in their country's economy. And then that's sold to, China or Iran or the US or whomever is willing, basically whoever's willing to pay them for it. And if they use that on everybody's phone, it's going to be found much, much sooner than if they use that really selectively. So those really, really high level attacks are probably not used for just anybody. They're probably reserved for specific targets, but they are still pretty dangerous.
Yeah, when I read about Pegasus, I was like, wow, this is, especially that it attacked iOS and it was able to get into iOS so easily. Well, not so easily, but successfully. And what are some things that people can do? Let's get back to maybe the practical side. Like, what are some things that people can do in terms of, iPhone or Android mobile security or mobile device security? And then also, actually, let's start with that too, because this could be a can of worms. Let's just start with the phone first, because I think that's one of the most, it seems to be one of the most vulnerable areas for people. Well, next to maybe not changing your admin Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we can make this device agnostic, right? So there's a digital security framework that I wrote and taught for a number of years. And step one is resist malware. So regardless of if you have a phone or a desktop or a tablet or whatever, you want to take steps to prevent malware from being on there. So to get your updates and install them as early as possible. So when there's an update offered, it means that something's being changed. Something's old, something's out of date, and it's being refreshed. And generally, very often, almost always, that is some sort of security flaw. And when an update is put out for that operating system, in some cases, it's a direct reverse engineer blueprint for what is wrong with that operating system. So if you're running an outdated operating system, you're running one with vulnerabilities, and vulnerabilities that are in many cases very well publicized. So we want to get those updates as early as possible, even if it changes the way your photo album looks and you don't like it or whatever. Security is really, for me, security is the main thing. So I want to get those updates as soon as possible.
What are your thoughts on beta updates?
Beta updates I don't do because those are, the software is being tested on the end user. And those usually if there's a serious security issue, those are going to be given to everybody, not just beta update users. If you want to use that, I don't really have a real problem with it from a security standpoint, but I don't do it. Just I don't.
I just didn't know if the beta release in itself, if that script would identify the vulnerabilities in the current public release.
I don't think so. I don't really know.
It's also probably not long enough. It's like the beta version isn't out long enough because I tried that. I tried turning on the beta release, and I think I got iOS 18. And the main reason I did it was because the Apple calendar was so much better on the iOS 18 version. But it was like, I feel like it was like a month later the full version came out, and then I turned the beta update off. But yeah, it's also not that long. I feel like so that way, the process of coding some other malicious software would probably take much longer than it would take the actual beta to be released publicly.
Right. And I'm just not an early adopter. So, I mean, it's not a security opinion. I'm just not an early adopter of really anything. So, that's why I don't do.
Let everyone else try it out first.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And guns, phones, cars, whatever. My last car was has been a repair nightmare. And I'm not a new car guy. I swore I was going to drive this thing till the wheels fell off, but I put so much money into repairs, and it's the first year that model of car was out, and I so regret doing that. Even though I bought it a couple years after it come out, like I should have not bought the first year.
That's like I'm still running a 2019 MacBook Pro, and I didn't get I haven't gotten the M series yet, but I'm about to get an M4 Pro.
Yeah.
Not only is it going to be nice because of the processing power is going to blow this one out of the water, but it's also kind of nice I would think at the fourth version they've refined it at this point enough to where it's going to be pretty solid.
Right. And that just made me kind of sad because my new MacBook is now like a little over 2 years old.
Which one is it?
I think it's the 2021, 2022.
Is it Apple Silicon chip?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, it'd still blow mine out of the water. I'm sure its benchmark scores are ridiculous. Anyways, going back to mobile devices. Yeah.
So keep your operating system up to date. When it comes to applications, we have to be a little bit more proactive. So my first thing I recommend is do an application audit. So go through all your apps. If you haven't used it in a month, you probably don't use it. Just get rid of it. Every single app you put on your phone potentially has vulnerabilities. It's potentially siphoning off data to send to marketers and everybody else. It's just taking space up on your phone, slowing your phone down. If you don't use it, take it off. There's this reluctance to get rid of stuff, and that's just a human tendency that's hardwired into us. We get something, we want to keep it, and that includes digital stuff. But get rid of those apps. They're still there. You can download them again. Just because you take it off your phone doesn't mean you can never have it again. Get rid of stuff that you don't use. It's less stuff you need to update, less stuff of vulnerabilities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In terms of minimalism too, like what I've done before is, and I need to do it again, I'll delete every single app, and I mean every app, and then I won't reinstall it until I am prompted by oh, I need to do this thing, and I can only do it with this tool, and then I'll download just that app. And it's
That's
amazing
hardcore, man.
how many things you just do not need. And I mean, I really only need like maybe 6 apps, and because I had like 4 pages before of apps, and so I was like, I'm deleting them all. Right, they're all gone. But yeah, just I second that as well.
So my goal is 1 page of apps with no folders. Just like that's where, and I'm not successful in that right this moment, but that is my goal. And that, yeah, there's like, you really get to look at it and you're like, wow, I haven't used that in like 2 years. I don't even know why that's still on here. Especially get stuff down in folders and
stuff downloads so quickly now that even if you do need it like a month from now, it's going to take 15 seconds to download, and then you're going to get the same functionality you had before.
Yeah, you're going to be automatically logged back into it, and all your stuff's still going to be there and whatever. Yeah. So get rid of, like, this part of my 3-pronged approach for apps. If you don't need it, get rid of it. If you do install it or keep it, you need to accept responsibility for it, and keep it updated. So just like operating systems, every single app is something that can go out of date and will have vulnerabilities, and you need to keep it updated. And you need to carefully look at the permissions that app has. I don't allow anything on my phone to use Apple, even though my phone is I also don't like paying payments on phones, so my phone's an iPhone, latest greatest iPhone 11 Pro Max. Limit the permissions on those apps. I don't let anything use Apple Intelligence or Siri, whatever. Let Siri recommend stuff through my apps, because that gives Siri access to the conversations I have in Signal, which is a security app. I don't want to just circumvent that and give everything to Siri. Everything doesn't need my location. Everything doesn't need my microphone or camera or contacts or calendar. So I look at apps and say, does it need this for a specific purpose? Signal does need access to my microphone if I'm going to use it to make phone calls, which I sometimes do. So I leave that access there. It does, it offers to share my location if I hit the little pin and send somebody my location. But in practice, that's almost never a thing that I do. So I just disable that. I don't give it access to my location. And if that is something you use all the time, sure, leave it on there. But it's just not a thing I use. So why give it the access that it doesn't need? I trust Signal, but Signal can also be hacked. So it does. I don't want to give it more permissions than it needs. So update your operating system, your apps, get rid of what you don't need, keep them updated, monitor the permissions. And if you didn't go looking for it, don't install it. Don't just, roll up at some restaurant and they're like, hey man, do you want to, you get a prompt to install their app to get a discount. If you didn't go looking for it, don't install it. That would be my advice as far as apps go. And if you're running an iPhone, you can skip the step. For everything else, you need some sort of antivirus application. That's basically my, the resist malware portion of my framework.
You said if you have, for anyone listening, if you have an iOS, you don't need antivirus. You're talking about for
on an iPhone
Android.
On an iPhone or an iPad, everything is so sandboxed that antivirus can't function well. It's basically in its little sandbox. It can't touch other apps. It can't touch the main operating system proper. It's so sandboxed that it really can't do anything. So it's not that iPhone is impervious to malware. They can get malware for sure, as we've talked about with Pegasus. But the antivirus software just can't do much in those environments. In Windows, Android, Mac OS, Chromebook, Linux, yes, you need to run an antivirus application.
How does someone determine whether or not they have malware on their phone? And what steps can you take to remove it?
That's a good question. So I would remove it through a malware, an antivirus application. So if you're doing good best practices, and you probably have no problem with this, you have the ability to take every single app off your phone. My perfect world recommendation would be every quarter or every 6 months, probably every 6 months is perfectly reasonable. Wipe your whole phone back to factory defaults and reinstall everything you need back on it, and re-download your pictures from iCloud, or however you handle that stuff.
Yeah,
that would be my perfect world recommendation. Almost no one.
Because when you do that, as far as I understand, with the way a factory reset and an iCloud restore works, is it doesn't save the individual apps into iCloud, it re-downloads a new version
Yeah.
and
It
the
starts you over.
updated version whenever you do that backup. Correct?
Yes. Now,
Okay.
if you are the user out there who's willing to do that, and you're like, is it really that important? Man, absolutely do that. That is a basically a clean slate reset every every 6 months, every year even. If you could do that every year, that would. Also, there's just so much clutter that gets built up in the operating system over time. Like that's just a really good practical step to take.
It takes about a day too. If anyone's interested, it takes about a day to go into your settings, do a full. You're basically erasing it like you were going to sell it or something like that, and then setting it up as a quote new device from your previous backup. So make sure you back it up right before you do it. But it takes about a day in terms of the downloading everything. Make sure you have good Wi-Fi connection, and you don't really need it for anything. You're not going on a trip or anything like that. But yeah.
Well,
so anyone's wondering from personal experience.
Yeah, I'm going to sidetrack here just a little bit. Like just from a personal perspective, that's a huge point of evolution and growth for me. Is when I made my living doing nothing but security stuff, I had all the time in the world to do to take security to the nth degree. Now I'm a full-time paramedic, and like I have to be at work at a certain time, and I'm tired when I get off, and I have a finite number of days off, and I don't just work 6 weeks a year or whatever.
You can't constantly run counter surveillance routes on the way to and from work.
Right. So I'm very, very sensitive to things that are going to cause people inconvenience or, a big time penalty of like, this is going to take you a day and a half to do. And you got to do it every, every month or whatever. Like those things are things people are not going to do. So I've tried to be much more sensitive to just integrating security into like you do this initial, like one day, spend, 4 hours here, 4 hours there, 4 hours another day getting this stuff set up, and then it's just transparent to you. That's what I try to focus on now more so than, you need to install this app. Every single time you log into something, you got to log into this first. Yeah. No one's except the 1,000 security nerds that followed my podcast are going to actually do that stuff.
And I love the Apple. I mean, I'm sure Android has this too, but like the automations app, I use that a lot. And I have an automation that will run an iPhone restart like every so often. So basically it'll prompt me to run the restart, and that'll restart reboot my iPhone, because as far as I understand, like that's good as well. And not just leaving the system running for like a month and doing like a restart on a weekly basis or something like that, which again takes 15 seconds.
I got to be honest, I've never thought about using an automation for that. So I do use automations for Wi-Fi. So basically my house, every base so I'm a paramedic, I rotate through various bases. My Wi-Fi turns off when I leave my house. If I show up at one of my places where I work, it turns back on, and it turns off when I leave that place. So I'm trying to turn that Wi-Fi on all the time.
I like that a lot. I'm going to add that. I might get your. How do you? Can you explain the script on that automation?
So I'll get with you offline. It's if anybody wants the specifics of how to do that, I can put up a blog post or something on how to do that. But it's like once you get in there, it's pretty self-explanatory. And if you already know how to use automations, like it's
Well, explain the motivation for that. I understand, but like why you would want to do that and not have your phone constantly pinging Wi-Fi networks as you're traveling down the interstate or down roads.
Okay, so when your Wi-Fi is on, it is not connected to a network. It's looking for a network. Your phone wants to put you on a network so that it's not using your cellular data, because Wi-Fi networks are generally more stable. They're faster. They don't use your data. There's all kinds of benefits to using Wi-Fi. So if you're not connected to a network, it's looking for one. And the way it looks for one is not to just sit back and wait for a network to connect to your phone. It's sending out basically a probe frame request, which is an active process. It sends out a message saying, hey, Justin's home network, are you there? Hey, Justin's work network, are you there? Hey, Justin's last airport you went to, are you there? It's basically rotating through all the networks that the phone remembers, which on an iPhone is every network you've ever connected to, unless you've gone in while you were connected to that network and forgotten it. So a lot of networks potentially, which is basically sending out a list of networks that you've ever connected to, which is if I'm in a technical surveillance capacity, that's valuable information to me because I can see places you've been before. If those networks are really specific, I can, glean some information about your pattern of life through that. It also tells me if I want to make a fake network that you connect to and then, tunnel your data through my network, I can just pick any one of those names and your phone will connect to it automatically. Also, that specific set of probe requests. So I'm probably the only person in the world that has a combination of my house, the 4 or 5 places where I work, the last airport I was at, the coffee shop that I go to every couple of days, and the bar that I go to every night, or whatever, or my girlfriend's house. Probably the only person in the world that has that exact combination, right? So if I see that combination of networks over here, and then I see it over there, like I can pretty much just follow you around, seeing that specific set of networks being requested. There's a lot of vulnerability there from a privacy standpoint, also from a security standpoint. I can make a completely unencrypted network that is Justin's home network. My phone will connect to it, and now all my data is running through that router. And a router is just a computer and a radio put together that I have control of. So I can capture all your information that's going through there. A ton of vulnerability with that. So long way of explaining why I like to have Wi-Fi off when I'm not actually at my house using my Wi-Fi or at my work using Wi-Fi.
Does that make sense? Yeah, no. Is that automation, is the if statement for that automation geolocation? Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Yeah, talking about Wi-Fi, just real briefly, do you have separate networks for your IoT, like Internet of Things devices, or?
So I don't have an IoT.
Okay.
I have my things on my IoT are my computer and my phone. That's
okay.
Pretty much it.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to talk about, like mobile security? Last thing you mentioned was the antivirus software for like Android for non-iOS devices.
Yeah. So there's 4 more steps in the framework. Resisting malware, protecting our data in motion, protecting cloud-hosted data, protecting data at rest, and then protecting personal information. All those, like we could take, very, very long deep dive into. I'll ask you how, we could spend a lot of time on this, or a little, as you see.
Hey man, I've done 4-hour podcasts before, so.
Okay, Joe Rogan.
As much time as you want to talk about it, I'm free.
Okay, so I'll try to keep these relatively brief. Protecting cloud-hosted data is my next thing, and that's the stuff that's in our email accounts and our iCloud accounts, in your Netflix account, your bank account. Those are all big repositories of data that are stored online, and some of those are more important than others, right? Like, I don't really care if you see what I watch on Netflix, but I do care if you see what I have in my bank account and have access to that, or what I have in my email account. So protecting those is choosing good providers. So I recommend choosing a good internet provider with a good reputation for security and preferably privacy. Gmail has an excellent reputation for security. Their privacy is not great, but for most people, I think it's a perfectly workable solution with excellent security options. I use a service called Proton Mail, which also provides privacy. Proton Mail itself doesn't have access to the contents of my email. And then it's protecting those accounts with good passwords. And good passwords are really poorly understood. This is one of my big successes as an instructor, I think, is explaining some quantifiable ways to make good passwords and helping people understand why those are important.
Talk about that, because this is something I like to nerd out on too. This password length.
So there's 3.
And what is a good password?
There are 3 things that make a good password. The first of those is length, and that is by far the most important. If you do nothing else, if you can make your passwords longer, you increase the security. So every time a bad guy tries to test one of your passwords, every character you add has a multiplicative effect. So if I use only lowercase passwords, or only lowercase letters in my password, and I have a 1-character password, there's only 26 possible combinations, right? If I use 2 characters, that's 26 times 26. It jumps from 26 possible combinations to 676. That's a massive increase. So length is by far the most important criteria. It's incredibly important because every character we add multiplies that effect. Complexity is the next most important criteria. So if we use lowercase letters, uppercase letters, numbers, and special characters, now instead of 26 possibilities in each position that multiply together, now there's 95. So if I have a one character password but it could be letters, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, or special characters, now it's 95 possibilities versus 26. But that really shows itself when we multiply them, into bigger combinations. So a 4-character password with only lowercase letters would be about 457,000 possible combinations. That's a lot more than 26, right? And only 4 characters. Who couldn't remember a 4-character all lowercase password? Anyone could. That seems like a big number, but when we're using all the combination of uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and special characters, now it's 95 times 95 times 95 times 95. Now it's 81 million, which is massively bigger space, much bigger haystack to have to sort through to find the perfectly correct combination than 457,000. It is many, many times bigger, much, much bigger space. So when we take that out to a real password length, now we're talking about trillions, billions of trillions of combinations. And those are truly huge numbers that give us real protection. And to be clear, it's not going to take, no one's going to have to search to the very last one to find yours. Statistically, it's going to be in the middle somewhere. It should be like if it's totally up to chance, it will statistically fall in the middle, maybe a little further out, maybe a little closer. But we want those massive numbers because no one's sitting down at the keyboard typing these passwords in, starting with lowercase a and working up through, like 9999999 or whatever, right? These things are attacked through a couple different intelligent guessing, maybe, and that's generally going to be like a coworker, an ex-boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever, someone who's mad at you and wants to get into your stuff. And we can opt out of that completely by using a combination of, good length and good complexity and unpredictability, which is the third factor. Unpredictability, basically, if it comes out of your head, it's probably a bad choice. Unpredictability. We're horrible human beings. We're horrible at unpredictability, at generating randomness. We tend to generate the same things over and over again, even if we think we're not. And I am just as guilty of this as anyone else. That's why I don't trust my brain to make passwords. I have a piece of software that does it for me. So intelligent guessing, we can opt out of that by using unpredictable things, which is just having a computer generate some nonsense that is now our password. Length, I recommend 30 characters wherever you can, which is most websites will let you do that. I think Google will let you use up to a 99 character password. Most websites will let you use, a solid length. And I recommend 30 characters is kind of my default. If I have to make it a little shorter because, XYZ website only lets me use 24, I'll go down to 24 for that website, but I'm not going to compromise security on all my accounts because 2 or 3 make me use a shorter password. When it comes to complexity, I want to use a combination of uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, and special characters, because what that forces a bad guy to do is to add all those characters to his recipe that he uses to attack password. So if I have a character or a password that is 100 characters long, but it's only all lowercase letters, theoretically a bad guy could break that only using lowercase letters, which is a much, much smaller pool of potentials than using every single character. If he has to say, well, try, start with a 1-character password using, A through Z lowercase, A through Z uppercase, 1 through 0 numbers, and all the lower ASCII special characters, that's 95 characters. But by the time you've multiplied that out, he's got to apply every possible combination using every possible combination of characters out to however long that password may be. That's where we get into real tangible security against things like brute force. That's true brute force brute force attack, just trying every possible combination. The other big type of attack is a dictionary attack. And these are very successful against, they're very successful in times where an attacker doesn't need Taylor's account specifically. They just want any Gmail account that they can possibly open so they can harvest that email list and send out emails for cheap electronics to some sort of bogus link that gets them something they want, either some gullible person to pay them money or access to that person's computer. So a dictionary attack is basically just taking the 10 million most common passwords. We're going to throw it at this account or this service or this device and see if it opens up. If it does, great. If not, great. Again, we completely opt out of that by using non-human generated passwords that are generated by some sort of software. So length, complexity, unpredictability will opt us out of intelligent guessing attacks, brute force attacks, and dictionary attacks. And the way we get there, really, no one's going to remember a pseudo-randomly generated 30-character password. The way we manage this is through a piece of software called the Password Manager. The one that I'm recommending these days for most users, most average users, is Bitwarden. It's completely free. It's open source. It's very secure. You can also pay $1 a month for personal users, which I strongly recommend. It gets you a whole bunch of extra features, including an emergency lockout feature where it's just a special little thing that one person has the ability to get into this under very, very specific criteria, which I think is a good backup to have if you should become incapacitated or for whatever reason. People who tend to dive into security tend to go secure all the way and kind of forget the backup and recovery side of things that is very, very important if you get locked out of your accounts. Bitwarden,
and a tangent to that, you can also add for iCloud like either a legacy account or someone who can access, like my wife, for example. She can. We both are legacy account holders. So if something were to happen to us, that because it's pictures and all that. I have 10,000 pictures on my camera roll on my iPhone. So family and kids and stuff. But so to second that, yes, I completely agree that having something like that and realizing that too much security sometimes is too much security.
Yeah. Well, my ex-girlfriend is a great example of this. I'm not big on forcing my significant other into adopting all my security measures. It's not good for a relationship. And it's like shooting, right? If a person's not into it, they're not really.
They're just not right for you. They're just not right for you.
They're really not going to take to it, right? Yeah. So I'm not big on forcing this on other people. If they want to do it, I'm 100% supportive. I'll show you how to do it. I'll help you. I'll spend any amount of time helping you learn and adopt this new kind of way of life. But she had a paid Proton Mail account. She had a good password manager. She had two-factor authentication. And one day her phone screen stopped working. The phone was perfectly fine, but the screen just stopped working on her iPhone 7 or whatever it was. And she couldn't access her two-factor authentication app, which meant she couldn't log into her account from a computer or whatever. And fortunately, we had gone in and put in, we had downloaded all her backup codes from Proton Mail, and we had a system of backup. So when she could still log in from her computer. But you really need to think, before you do all this stuff, you really need to stop and think, if my phone died today, or my computer, or my fill in the blank died right now, how would I get back into my email account? How would I get into my bank account? If my house burned down and my phone and my laptop are in there, how would I get into my my home insurance account, my mortgage account, my XY? Like, you need to have answers for those now, not when you're like, oh crap, how do I recover these things that I put all these security measures?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the Apple Password Manager as opposed to
I think it's great.
Bitwarden?
I think it I don't use it just because I already have another system. I think anything that makes this more accessible and more commonplace and understandable is a wonderful feature. I love things like Apple obfuscating email addresses. When I sign up for a new account or service, Apple
I love that too. Yeah.
Do you want to give them your actual email address, or do you want us to make up, abc123 at xyz.com? I always take that second option. The emails still come to my phone,
Same.
but I don't have to give them my real email address. I think anything like that that provides a reasonable degree of security. If it's insecure, then it's not good. But if it provides a reasonable degree of security, which Apple does, privacy questionable, but security sure, I think it's a step in the right direction.
Now, can you explain to the layman, like, okay, how does having a password manager not make you more vulnerable to now someone gains access to that password manager and now they have every password, as opposed to having them all partitioned?
Sure. So the thing we have to do with the password manager is put a very strong password on it. And there's Bitwarden. The one that I recommended is a cloud-based password manager. Your database is stored on a Bitwarden server. You download the app on your phone, your computer, your browser extension for Chrome, Firefox, whatever. There's apps for everything for Bitwarden. You log in from your phone. It accesses that cloud-based server. That has some safety in that if your house burns down, your database is still stored on that Bitwarden server. You can re-download a new instance of it, log in, and you're back with your stuff. The vulnerability there is anyone with your email address that you used for that account can touch that account and try to get into it. So you have to have a very strong password on that. The other thing that you have to have, and they also look at some other things like this concept of velocity, right? If I log in from my house right now, and in 25 minutes from now, try to log in from, Germany, they're probably going to say, Justin probably didn't go from Germany in the last half hour. There are other measures in place, but I don't necessarily bank on those. The other thing that you need to do is put two-factor authentication on this account. And this goes for really anything. And I'm sure you're familiar with it, Taylor. It's basically an app that you install on your phone. You connect it to your Amazon account, your Gmail account, your Yahoo, your Twitter, X, your Instagram, Facebook, just about everything does two-factor authentication nowadays. And you go to log in, you put in your username, your password, and it says, okay, Justin, welcome. Before we let you in, though, can you enter this code off your two-factor authentication app? You open that app, enter the little 6-digit code, and then you're in. That is that's my next segue very well into that, because that's my next thing after passwords for protecting your cloud-hosted data is use two-factor authentication. There's other ways that works, but absolutely need to do that for your password manager because it's the keys to the kingdom, right? It's the the eggs all in one basket. And I think sometimes have students say, I don't want to put everything in a password manager and then lose that. If you put a really strong password on that password manager, I promise you it is a better overall solution than having just absolute garbage passwords on absolutely everything, because one of those things is going to get hacked. I guarantee it.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on, I know you use a password randomizer software, but what are your thoughts on using, like I use sentences. I type out a sentence using punctuation and other special characters that I won't share on a podcast, but I use special characters to replace certain words and punctuation most of my passwords range between like 25 and 35 characters using this specific, and it's a structure. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I also use a password manager just because it's so quick to put my fingerprint on my MacBook to have it unlocked. But if I don't have it, I still know the password for all of those things, just because it is a sentence. Now, it is something I created, but it's such a long list, and it's something that, I mean, I can't imagine anyone would be able to figure out, like, that's the specific sentence that goes with this website.
Yeah, I love it. So that's called a passphrase. I'm a big proponent of those. I use those basically for two things: for getting into my computer, and then for getting into my password manager. Pretty much everything else is just off the password manager. Like the password manager is making the
I like
password,
that structure.
But but some things we do have to remember, and we don't want to use bad passwords like p@ssw0rd, right? Like that's in every dictionary tack under the sun. It's not protecting you from anything. Again, back to those principles. Length above all else. Length is the prime directive. The longer you can make the password, the better. Even if you have to, at the end of your password, hit a 10 times, whatever. If you can add length, that's more spaces that have to be tested. That increases the overall space by a multiplicative effect. Make your password longer. That is the overarching main thing you can do to make it better. And using a sentence or passphrase is an excellent way to do that because it's really easy for us to remember. I'm all for it.
Okay. Yeah, and the length matters because it's a math problem. Breaking a password is a math problem when you're talking about brute force attacks.
Yeah.
Now we have Google Willow to worry about, but that's another topic. But so we got cloud security. Actually, on cloud security, I wanted to ask you, and this is a specific iOS question. What are your thoughts on the advanced data protection for iCloud versus having that turned off? And as far as I understand, advanced data protection means that only you have the key, that encryption key, when it's off, Apple maintains that encryption key somewhere. So that way, if you lose that encryption key, you can still gain access through a certain verification process. But if only you have the encryption key, it means that your data is more secured from, someone obviously getting that key, be it government or a criminal or something.
These devices reset your trigger after each shot so that you can dry fire just like you live fire in semi-auto. Plus, the Blackbeard fires a laser out of the bore so that you can track your shots and work on height over bore offset for close engagements. And the Blackbeard X uses an accelerometer to track and analyze the motion of your gun on their Mantis X app. Even the United States Marine Corps saw the training value in the Blackbeard X and began to utilize these devices in basic training. So now Marine Corps marksmanship coaches can analyze recruit shooting performance using the Blackbeard in order to make them better shooters. So stop wasting time with traditional dry fire, order yourself a Blackbeard or Blackbeard X today and start training to a higher standard.
Yeah, I use it. There is so I don't know, 10 years ago when I was doing the privacy, 8 years ago, whatever, when I was doing the privacy podcast, I didn't upload anything to the cloud. Like iCloud was just turned out. Now I pay for like a terabyte or whatever, I don't know, 200 gig, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because I've lost so many photos in transfer into new, like, a huge chunk of my life is just like, I have no photos from it, which is not like, is not a cool thing to have happen. Right.
Yeah.
Like I'd love to be able to show, to reminisce about those times, show people photos from, whatever period. So now I'm much like backups are a much bigger part of my life. I do use that. It's kind of I trust Apple, but do I really trust Apple? I do want to upload my stuff to the cloud and have it easily accessible and have it automatically sync with, my MacBook. And when I get a new phone, have it automatically, it is easy. And there's, I used to completely discredit anything that had anything to do with convenience. But again, back to that, real world application, nobody's going to do stuff that's just 10 times harder for no real reason.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're using a really strong password and good two-factor authentication on iCloud, it's very secure. It's hard. It's going to be hard for anybody to get into. That advanced data protection encrypts it on the actual cloud to deny Apple access to it. So Bruce Schneier is a famous cryptographer, and Schneier has talked for a long time about being in fiefdom. So we're essentially, back to the Middle Ages, we swear allegiance to Apple, and we're stuck there forever because all our stuff's there and we know how to use it and all our devices, or we swear allegiance to Google, or there's one dude out there probably still using a Windows phone.
It's a ransomware subscription.
Yes. And it's hard to get out of. You're going to lose stuff if you you got to learn a new system and buy all new junk. But to the extent that I can, I do want to protect myself from Apple. To be honest, I don't love Apple. This unplugged phone was super compelling to me. The black phone back in the day, I had a black phone, and I realized, this is just an Android phone with a bunch of apps I got to pay for. The Purism phone, there a bunch of people have tried to do this, and maybe part of having really high speed, low drag technology that works beautifully and seamlessly. The cost of that is they got to have a bunch of users, and I don't know. But yeah, but we do the best we can, right? Like nothing's perfect. There is no perfect system. If you're I used to, I guess, kind of secretly, or maybe not so secretly, look down on Android users, but like everybody's just doing the best they can. Like I mean, yeah.
So with that advanced data protection mode, is there a system you have for making sure that, because this is kind of in these terms, like privacy and security, in this sense, I view the privacy as you're the only one with the key, but it's also less secure in the sense of like, if you lose that key, now your stuff is gone, right? You just locked yourself out. So how would you recommend to people who wanted to turn that on to make sure that, like, other than just like, don't lose the password, dummy. Like,
if I'm not mistaken, you also have to assign someone else who can.
Oh, okay.
So I'm pretty sure
So a form of a legacy contact type thing, but for this.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense, because I think my wife is set up so that if even if I just lose my password for iCloud, she can help me sign in or something. And so that makes sense that for this, it does basically the same thing.
Well, and also like as far as true safety and as far as data safety, I'm also not opposed to writing some things down or committing some things to paper. So that's a big concern if you are worried about things like an FBI search warrant, or you're operating in a foreign country and worried about being captured, and that's a huge deal. But for me, I can let me backtrack a little bit. In January, I choked and almost died. Someone did the Heimlich maneuver on me. An off-duty Charlotte firefighter in this restaurant saw me and did the Heimlich maneuver. And so since then, I've been very proactive on putting together basically, in a case of death or serious bodily injury, like here's what I want to happen with my things, my legacy, whatever. So a part of that has been, committing this, like I have a very opaque digital life that would be hard for anyone to untangle, but I want someone to be able to access my financial accounts and my, be able to dispose of my property and what have you. So part of that is just, so I've printed up my username, email, some backup codes to get into my, certain accounts, and I've handed those off to certain people. And, the odds that person's safe is going to be broken into, and somebody's going to find that, piece of paper and try to log into my email account, probably not targeting me if they break into his house and get into his safe. So my stuff is probably not very relevant, or they probably don't care. And I'm certainly going to get some sort of alert that's saying there's login from, some place that I'm not at,
right?
That I'm going to have the opportunity to deal with. Like, so writing things down on a piece of paper, I don't think is the worst. It's universally frowned upon on online security advice. If you Google computer password advice, never write anything down. But if it's only a password and there's no username or website associated with it, what does it hurt?
Well, no, it's also like where you store it, right? Because I think a lot of that is speaking to the people who work in an office environment and who have a sticky note with their password on their computer's monitor. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Because, like you said, I mean, losing hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of pictures, I mean, that would just be absolutely devastating. So having it safe as well as secure and private, it's always a balance of those things. So actually, I want to take a quick tangent. You choked in a restaurant and someone did the Heimlich maneuver on you. Like, can you talk about that? Because I had not an experience like that, but when I was a police officer on duty, I was eating in my patrol car and I was eating Chipotle. And I started to choke, and it got to the point where, which, I mean, everyone's choked, but like it got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm parked in the back of this parking lot. There's no one around me. I can't radio for help. This is going to sound crazy, but I almost thought, okay, last resort, get out of the car and shoot into the pavement. And hopefully someone's going to hear and come over here and like help me out, because
man, choking is scary.
It's a terrifying situation.
Mine wasn't as scary as that. So I was attending just part one of a 3-part mountain search and rescue series. So I was surrounded by paramedics. There's a PA.
Oh my gosh, it's a perfect situation.
Right.
Perfect environment.
So we had been out, God, man, 22 degrees and snowing and raining all day and having a snowshoe everywhere we went to a Mexican restaurant that night, like 9:00 that night when we got back to what passes for a town, and there's baskets of chips all over the table. So my girlfriend is also she's a paramedic, law enforcement officer. She's also on our search and rescue team, so she was at the class with me. She's sitting to one side. There's a couple of random people to my left. Across the table is a really good friend of mine who's one of the best paramedics that I know. But it's a huge table. The whole class is there. So I'm just like, how do you stop eating these chips? Like, do they run out? Do you die? What happens? Like, how do you stop? So I'm shoveling chips in my face at the rapid rate. And just like, I grab one, I shove it toward my mouth, and like it hits my tooth and a little piece breaks off. And like, apparently I was inhaling at the same time and it landed like perfectly. So I can
Oh
still
my
move a little
gosh.
air. So I'm sitting here like, just like, I know, like in my brain, I know what's about to happen, but I'm still able to move a little air. And then it sucks down and I'm stuck.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
like in my brain, I don't know why, but I stood up and I'm like, I don't want to make the international choking sign because I don't want to freak everybody out. But also I'm like, I had this instinct to move. I'm like, I got to get out of here. Well, so my friend across the table is like, he's choking. Like, this is real. Like, he's like, this is it. He said like 8 things in like a second. Like, do it. Like, it's not a joke. Do it. It's for real. Grab him. So,
Oh my gosh.
so my girlfriend tried to grab me, but I just started moving toward the end of the table. And there was a Charlotte firefighter, amazing dude. We're actually pretty close after this. Like, he was one of the instructors. I didn't know him at all before this class, but he grabbed me, did the Heimlich, and like this. And in my head, I'm like, does the Heimlich maneuver even work? Is it like a reserve parachute? They're like, that'll give you something to do on the way down. Like, does it really work? But sure enough, man, it just popped it right out. Like, that thing flew out of my mouth and onto the carpet. And like in my head, I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm going to put my hand, like if I puke, I don't care. Like, I'm going to put my hand all the way in the back of my throat and put, like, being without air.
It's next to drowning. I mean, it's like the drowning impulse of like, whatever is going to stop this right now, I will do it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The guy across from the table from me, I was looking at from him. I was like, if I lose consciousness, he's going to cut my throat. I'm going to be fine. But, oh man, it's still a terrifying feeling.
Yeah, it's to the point where, like, you know, that experience that I had, and it was one of those, like you said, it didn't go all the way, but it was at that, like, I don't know where it is physiologically, but I was like pulling it in, pull my breath in. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take one slow, easy breath in, and then I'm going to force everything I got. And thankfully it did dislodge it, but I couldn't even finish my lunch after that. Like, I was man,
I did a lot of Googling on how to do the Heimlich maneuver on yourself. And I am very careful about like chewing before I swallow now.
Same. And it's one of those things where it's like, we do it so often, but I don't even let our kids now eat lunch alone. Like, if we're going to go somewhere, I'm like, no, you don't eat. And that sounds, I don't know, like someone says helicopter parents. Like, no, like, you have no idea. Like, what? I mean,
so I also had this in my head. My girlfriend, I mentioned she's a cop and a paramedic. She's been a cop for 18 years now. So I knew about this beforehand. She responded to a routine obvious death. Somebody found this guy dead. So they walked into his house. There's a hot dog on the table, like 2 bites out of it. And you can see where he spit in the sink. And then he's in the bathroom dead with a hot dog lodged in his throat. So we don't eat hot dogs. And I knew this
because that's one of the most choked on foods too. Like, they have there's a list of the most choked on foods, and I think that's like one of the top ones.
Yeah, hot dogs, a silent killer, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's just made perfectly to do that. But yeah, that's the Heimlich is one of those things where you wonder, is it you're like, is this like CPR, like where we just do this kind of like in the back of an ambulance because for effect, or does this actually work? But it's every single time I've heard someone do it, it's worked. And if they're there soon enough, I mean, it's worked. And
and also as paramedics, we almost never get to do it because if someone's choking and it takes us 5 minutes to get there, either someone else has done the Heimlich or they're dead. Like, I've never done it to anybody. So I take that back. I did it. I was like 16 or 17 years old, and I had just been through the first responder class, and a little girl choked at a church, like potluck, and I did the Heimlich maneuver on her. And like, honestly, I don't think I did anything. I think she'd coughed it up a little bit before I got to her, but I still, from her grandfather, still gives me, he was the pastor of our church, still gives me credit every time I see her for saving her life. And I don't, to be honest, don't really feel like I did anything, but.
Yeah, I was a SRO at a school, and I had to go do an interview for something. And then when I came back, the SRO that filled in for me, he was like, "Yeah, you missed a lot while you were gone. Some kid choked on a hot dog during lunch." I was like,
"Yeah, it's kind of a big deal." Yeah,
yeah. Have you heard those? I don't know what they're called. They're like the suction thing, the life vac things.
I can't remember what it's called. I don't know.
Like,
I've
I don't
heard
know
they
if you
do,
heard
but
of,
I can't speak to them.
yeah, you never know if like the videos are just marketing staged or, real, but it makes sense. It's like, as an engineer, I'm thinking, yeah, I mean, just create a vacuum on this side
Right?
and
Yeah.
this is going to push it out. I mean, that's what the Heimlich is, right? We're creating more pressure over
Yeah.
here to, force that out. But I've always been amazed that there's that much air left in the lungs to be able to force something out. But I guess you do it, hard and fast enough, and it's going to do it.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't expect to take that tangent, but no, what were you going to say?
Right. Also, I don't think I realized you had been a law enforcement officer, and I don't know if you know, I'm actually a cadet in the police academy right now.
Well, that's awesome. How long you been doing that?
So our class started in September. It's interrupted for about 2.5 weeks for Helene. I'm in a night class, so I think graduate in May.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Do you already have an agency? Are you going with an agency, or are you going by yourself? Like, how does it work in your state?
So I'm sponsored by my sheriff's office, which means I don't have to pay for anything. I don't have to pay for books or uniforms.
That's great.
But also I'm not taking pay from them, so I don't owe them anything. And there's it's the gamut from people who are paid every night when they're there to people who are paying for everything out of pocket. So I'm kind of in the middle of that. This was law enforcement's always a thing I'm a little older now, and I don't know that I really need to prove myself or anything, but it's always kind of a thing. I've just wanted with everything, I've kind of wanted to kind of be able to speak from an experiential standpoint rather than just we should defund the police or back the blue or whatever.
Yeah.
I want the actual, if you want to be good at first aid, go be a paramedic. If you want to be a gunfighter, go be in the military. Kind of wanted the experience of being in law enforcement. Because it's different from anything that I've ever done. So I had a really, really good schedule at EMS. I worked days on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday only for 2 years. And I decided to screw that up and move my schedule to weekends so I could go to the night class. So
yeah, that's awesome, man. No, I think you'll like it. I pray that you get a good agency. I mean, I'm assuming the department you're going to be the sheriff's department you're going to be working for and stuff. And that's one of the things. I miss it. I miss being a cop. I left last December. I was with a break-in service. I was about 5 years. But and I've talked about this in another podcast that I've gone on. We talked about law enforcement specific stuff, but the politics there were absolutely absurd. And every department has politics. Every department has their issues. But it was to the point where they were prioritizing budget over school safety. They were telling us not to pursue vehicles that our LPR would pick up as stolen, not even to turn around and try to stop them. So, I mean, just the level of, again, prioritizing public optics over public safety was, it was bordering on criminal. And I was like, I just can't be a part of this anymore. And so, but I still miss it. There's the aspects of the marshal community and the service and stuff, and just that, also just kind of looking behind the curtain of what's going on in your town.
Yeah. So, perfect world for me is once school's over, I'll go back to my Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday schedule. But honestly, I expect EMS to fill that position while I'm gone, and I'll work 1 day a week part-time as a deputy. Realistically, I don't know what, maybe I'll end up being full-time law. I'm too old to do, I don't have a whole lot of years on the road ahead of me. If I end up going full-time, I'll, try to worm my way into CID as quickly as possible. But I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I think you'll like it. I think you'll enjoy it. That's cool. So we were talking about mobile security, cloud security, choking, law enforcement. Okay, so next I want to talk about this article, and Rich actually sent me this article, and the title of it was "Lessons Learned at the Worst Firearms Training I've Ever Attended." I'd like you to talk about that, but also maybe in a broader sense, firearms training in general, and how because you had some recommendations in that article which were great, how you vet training and help people determine what is and is not good training, because that's one thing I talk about a lot is people need to get more education and training and not just buy a bunch of gear.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a special operations veteran. I'm a very high level shooter, and not to toot my own horn. It's not to inflate my ego. Uh, but if I'm still going to training, like you probably need to as well. Like
Yep.
if you have if you have no training, you need some.
It's a
And that's
perishable
just,
skill.
yeah, everyone needs, like no one's born being good at really anything. I have zero talent. Like every bit of skill I have has come from hard work, from training, and then from practicing what I've been trained. So you absolutely need training. Um, I don't know who originally said this, but Ranger Daly, he was one of the instructors at the Special Operations Training Group when I went through. Like in an emergency, you're not going to rise to the occasion. You're going to default to your level of training. So absolutely need training. I'm a big believer in that. I love, things that people like Carl Wren are doing. He's got, I think, like a 40-hour training program, but it's broken down into like 40-hour blocks, and there's a coin at the end of it to encourage people to, go through the whole process, like a little bit at a time as they can. Anything that makes training more accessible to more people, because very few concealed carriers actually train. And just in law enforcement training, I'm sure um, even going to like somewhere between like 40 and 60 hours of initial training as a law enforcement officer does not make you a shooter. It is so you can pass the field sobriety test at the end of block
Right.
training. You need to seek training on your own, even if you're a cop, military guy, whatever. I've trained with a lot of people, a lot of people, with national name recognition, and a lot of people that nobody knows, but who are very talented and good instructors. And a little bit, I hate this article because I've written so many reviews of excellent firearms training, and this one is the one that got so much attention. It like 10 times the traffic of most of my articles. I had a couple really big name instructors. A YouTuber with 4 million subscribers contacted me to ask me about this thing, and I'm like, man, why is nobody here when I'm writing these reviews of these awesome Tom Givens, Rob Hawk, whatever classes? Like, why is it the negative stuff that gets all the attention? But it's just the nature
I think
of
it's
the
the
beast.
human psychology of like it's the sounding the alarm thing where animals when
Yeah.
I forgot where I was reading this. I don't know if it was Jonathan Haidt or what, but he was talking about how animals.
What a great author, by the way.
Yeah. So like if a bird sounds the alarm for a predator, not only birds recognize that alarm, but also monkeys. So
Interesting.
so like they communicate, which again we don't really understand their communication, but they communicate on some level in other areas. But the alarms in particular that animals will sound alert other species, and that alarm is just as much an alarm to them as it is to that species itself. So I think that has something to do with it too. Is like anytime what is it, a loss hurts more than a win feels good as well. It's kind of that bad news, but you sounded an alarm, and it's like, oh, everyone's like, oh, what? Let me avoid this.
Yeah. Well, and
But
my
anyways,
cousin,
go
who
ahead.
is an amazing businessman, is like, man, you should just be like the curmudgeonly, like kind of good naturedly mad at everything. Like that would probably be far more successful. And I'm like, you're probably right, but
Get off my lawn. Get off my range.
yeah. So, Anyway, I attended this course. It was not super inexpensive. It was middle of the road price wise, but I think $500 or $600 for 2 days. But this is the only course, almost the only course that I've ever talked anyone else into attending. My girlfriend, her department paid her way, which I'm glad. A buddy from Northern Virginia and his brother, his wife was supposed to come. She's a law enforcement officer also, but was unable to. So his brother came, and his brother has his brother has no firearms training at all, no formal training at all. So we had a kind of a spectrum of, former SOF people down through no training at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so a good cross section of perspective, I thought, and probably I understand that probably all four of those people were probably a little influenced by my attitude for the training as well. But I tried to be, kind of objective and just seek everybody's opinion. All four of my people were really annoyed at being there and even having to drive back out there for the second day. Which
What
really,
level of course is this? Is it we're talking like a basic introductory course, fundamentals, or
so that kind of gets to one of the conundrums in firearms training generally. There's no prerequisite to coming to the course, which I think is difficult to enforce. Some instructors manage to pull it off well. Simon Golub, one of the best, pistol-training.com, one of the best classes I've ever attended, has you need to be able to shoot a 3x5 card 5 times at 5 yards on demand to stay in the class. I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
This class was, there were no basics taught. There was a lot of assumed knowledge. There was no grip, stance, sight alignment, sight picture, breath control, follow through. None of that stuff. It all assumed that everybody had a baseline level of skill, which everyone did not, certainly. And in our little group before, we were able to kind of mitigate that by, my girlfriend has the training that she has in law enforcement. My friend has the training that he has in the military and wherever he works now. But some of at least one person had no formal training at all. So there was a lot of assumed knowledge. So I'm going to say this is probably an intermediate level, tended to be an intermediate level class.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, not explicitly stated in the syllabus that was presented online. It's also extremely competition oriented, which I would not have attended had I known. That was sort of opaque just based on what was presented online.
Mm-hmm. And what happened?
So overall, just a terrible classroom presence, terrible instructor presence. And I take this kind of personally, and I don't feel like I get a lot of recognition from the firearms community as being an instructor because I don't teach firearms. But I have made a comfortable 6-figure living as an instructor, and I've been an instructor basically for the last decade. I'm a pretty good judge of effective instructorship, and it was just awful. So, first of all, I think a lesson should be prepared, planned, rehearsed. There should be a clear-cut set of objectives and goals of we're going to get from A to B, and maybe if there's time, we'll get to C. And there was none of that here. It very much seemed stream of consciousness. There was no clear cut, okay, we're going to work on, again, to reference Simon Golub. Hey guys, here's what we're going to work on with the goal of getting to, let's say arbitrarily, faster and more accurate shot from the presentation. Be able to put more shots in a smaller area in less time, but, with very clear cut set of criteria. There was none of that. It was just, what does everybody want to work on? Okay, then that's what we'll work on. And it was just kind of instructor stream of consciousness. There was even an anecdote at the beginning of the lesson of when I taught, in the military, I would talk for an hour and then I'd be like, okay, is everybody ready to go? And 3 people would raise their hand and be like, what are we doing? That's kind of what it was still like. Just not a cogent lesson.
It was like a Jordan Peterson lecture.
Yes.
No structure. We're just going to talk about whatever happens, whatever comes to be on stage.
Right. Which, if you could go to all of Jordan Peterson's lectures, would probably be great. They probably.
Sure. It depends on depends on the stream of consciousness and whether or not you are signing up to, and that's what you're signing up for.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then once we got to the range, just poor range management. So there was some range safety issues, which my biggest concern, frankly, because at one point I did feel like I was in danger of being shot. But also coaching over gunfire. No one can hear what you're saying, so it doesn't really matter what you say. And especially when people are asking you to repeat yourself or wait till the gunfire dies down, then asking you to repeat yourself. And then the next time gunfire starts up, you repeat that same behavior. Like I'm not sure what I have to learn from you as an instructor. Things like not coaching, not spreading your coaching around. So I'm a firm believer that everyone pays to attend your training, pays the same amount. They don't pay based on skill level or based on, theoretically, the lowest skilled person would pay the most because they're going to benefit the most from that class. But there was an uneven distribution of coaching. And in my group of 4, the 2 most seasoned experienced people got the most coaching. And the other 2, one absolutely, the other one, I believe, got no coaching whatsoever. no coaching from the instructor at all. I was trying to coach my girlfriend. He said, do this. So, hold it like this, adjust your grip like this, do X, Y, or Z, but he never came over and addressed her directly as far as that. And I believe he did not address the other person in the other group of two on the line that was with our little group before as well.
Wow.
So yeah, things like that are really, really, especially, man, I convinced three other people to pay for this class. Like had it just been me, it'd just been a bad lesson learned, but I kind of have a little bit of an axe to grind since I, talked four other people, two of them into traveling, 8 hours, spending the night attending class, spending 3 nights with me, attending class, missing a day of work and all that. So,
yeah. And especially because when it's someone's first time doing something like that, you want it to be a positive experience and something that's going to want to make them to train more. And it's like, hey, come do this thing. This is, and then they come out and they're like, good gosh, this is what training is. This sucks.
Yes.
And so it's like, no, that's not exactly. Let me explain why.
Yeah.
What was the safety thing that happened?
If you're interested in new innovative training tools, then you have to check out Ace VR. And make sure to use promo code DEFENDERS to get 1 month free. I'll admit that when I first heard about this device, I thought it was probably a gimmick and there was no way it would feel realistic. But the moment I put on the headset and held the controller, it was obvious to me that we had stepped into a new era of firearms training. Not only does the virtual reality environment accurately represent the real world, but the pistol controller has the same weight and feel of a real gun. And the trigger feels just like an actual trigger. With Ace VR, you can play several different game modes, from drills that work on the fundamentals of marksmanship to competitive stages, and even more entertaining modes that work on situational awareness. You can also compete with friends and others in the Ace community. And don't forget to use promo code DEFENDERS to get 1 month free.
So day one was supposed to be pistol. Day one was supposed to be carbine. It actually ended up being day one was pistol. Day two, that morning he said, hey, come up for be ready for like an hour of pistol and then we'll go into rifle. It turned out we were like going to lunch and we're still not done with pistol. So we finally get into rifle and we do a couple drills and then we jump into like these really time consuming competition stages. He wants everybody to walk through the stage dry. And then after everyone's walked through it and he's, gave whatever pointers or whatever, then everybody's going to run through it live. So people are walking through the stage, 2 or 3 people walk through it. And then he says, oh, hold on. I didn't show you guys how to shoot and move. Let me demonstrate this real quick. So he demonstrates it. And then he says, go back there and practice. Like do it dry. So we had been staged at basically about the 25-yard line because everything had been like 25 yards and in with pistol. And the rifle stage was, well forward of that on the range. So that's where my range bag was. That's where most people's stuff was kind of scattered out. So people go behind the 25-yard line and horizontally across the range start practicing shooting on the move. So I'm kind of cognizant of this, but before it really starts, I walk off the range to go to the bathroom. So then I walk back onto the range at the 50-yard line. And I'm just walking down the range and then look over and someone is dry practicing toward me with a rifle. And we've done live fire. There's been no formal clearing of guns. There's no safety officer there. There's no instructor. And I like a little bit lost it. And I was like, I'm going to pack my things and I'm going to leave now. Which I did. I just went ahead and left at that point.
Yeah.
I wasn't, not only have I not gotten anything out of the class, but also now I'm in, in fear.
You're risking your life.
Shot. Yeah. Yeah. I don't trust
You're risking your life for bad training.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that was the safety issue, and it's, a little bit my fault. Like I should have been aware of where I was walking onto, but also people shouldn't have been cut loose to dry practice in the uprange area without an instructor present, without locking down that area. Somebody saying, hey, don't this is an area that had been traversed various times throughout the 2 days with no, there'd been nothing going on up there. So there's no reason. Yeah. Just, like Tom Gibbons said, I took Tom's 5-day protected pistol craft class last year. And Tom said, don't say no one would be stupid enough to walk here because someone will prove you wrong. And I proved him wrong inadvertently. But yeah, just that's a bad practice. You should have someone there, an instructor there, keeping an eye on the situation. You should never put students to do things completely unsupervised.
Yeah.
And if
I'm a big
can't,
fan of safety systems. Like
Yeah.
we have
Yes.
rules,
Yeah.
we have all but you need to have a system in place to mitigate that from happening. And that's absolutely wild.
Yeah. So that's basically basically what happened there. So if I were going to recommend anything to someone looking for training, I would say there's some names in the industry you're not going to go wrong with. So I wasn't a big Tom Givens fan until I went to one of his classes, and then I mean, now you can't really tell me the guy's ever done anything wrong. I'm just kidding, but he is an incredibly effective instructor. Like there's not a misused moment in 5 days of training. Every single minute was accounted for. If you're not up on the line shooting or listening to him explain the drill and demonstrate the drill that you're about to shoot,
You're loading mags.
standing behind loading magazines, getting ready to swap out with the relay that's up there. The targets are selected because they don't have to be changed out very often. We can shoot this, and then we can use this part of the target. Like it is a masterpiece of timing and delivery. It's beautifully done. Greg Ellifritz, John Hearn, Akil Kadir, and Tiffany Johnson. The Hauts for shotgun training, Rob and Matt Haught, Tim Chandler and Ashton Ray. There are a myriad of amazing instructors out there that do a phenomenal job. Chuck Haggard, Kyle DeFore. I've been to so many good classes. I've never been to a bad one, so it's kind of blew my mind. Nationally known guy, very high level competitor, very high level military guy. I just assumed it would be good. If I had Googled his name, and after action reviews, course critiques, something like that, I would have found some bad reviews, but unfortunately I didn't. And I didn't name this guy. I'm just not I'm not I just don't have time to stress out about somebody being mad at me. So if anybody wants to contact me directly, I'm happy to tell you his name. I'm not going to post it publicly though.
Yeah, that's you mentioned Akil and Tiff and or Ak and Tiff, and that was the first. Let's see, that was the first civilian firearms training I went to post military and post any post government training basically.
Yeah.
And it was eye opening in a really good way. And at first I was like because it was for NRA instructor certification, and I was only getting it for basically insurance purposes, so I can get instructor insurance. And I just kind of was viewing it as almost a check in the box to go to this course. And NRA, basic, whatever. And, because you have to do basic pistol and then basic pistol instructor BOPs. So I went through it, and man, I was very impressed. And not just impressed with how they did the training and structured it and how well it was put together, but also the soft skills, not soft skills, but soft skills for anyone listening.
Yeah.
The interpersonal skills, and not the gung ho rah rah training that I was accustomed to in the military. And at first, I was kind of like, "This is what is this weak sauce?" But then it's effective because most of the world is not former Marines or law enforcement or military, whatever. And they just want to learn how to use a gun safely and learn how to, exercise their rights. And it's a very effective way, and they do a phenomenal job. Ak and Tiff do a phenomenal job at that. And obviously they're Range Master alumni, and a lot of the people on that list you mentioned are as well. And so definitely Tom's doing something right in terms of cranking out very competent instructors.
Yeah. I've been nothing but impressed with the I kind of jokingly call them the Range Master Mafia, even though I'm Range Master.
I think they call it themselves. I think they say that about themselves too.
Okay. But you got them, and then you got the gun sight click, and you got but I've been nothing but impressed by that group of instructors, and they are kind of they go to the reunions together, and they a lot of those people write in Tom's Range Master newsletter and whatever, but that program is turning out a group of very confident and capable and qualified instructors for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Um, what is what in your opinion? What's a sign of a good instructor? And actually, let's do this. Like a bad instructor, like you mentioned those things, and obviously safety, disorganization, lack of communication skills. What in your opinion is a sign of like a good instructor? And then maybe if you want to take a step further, like an instance where it's like this is be like a great instructor, one that you've had, or just maybe a description.
So I hate to keep bringing up Tom Givens, but one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in firearms training is, I don't know, Tom's been teaching for he's in his 70s now,
Ever.
probably 45 years, 45,
Yeah.
50 years. I don't know. I like probably about as long or longer than I've been alive. So I went to the Simon Golub class, on-demand performance out in Oklahoma with Rich back in June. And Tom Givens showed up as a student. And, I just trained with Tom less than a year before for my first time. And to be a student with Tom is pretty impressive thing. I was like, holy crap, I'm on the same line with this guy. But for 2 days, Tom never said a word. He probably knows more than anybody there. He's probably taught more hours and more students and stood on more ranges than anybody there. Never said a word. And that is, that is incredibly impressive to me. Like at times I was tempted to be like, well, I was shown how to do it this way. But I mean, like Tom Givens never said a word. And I think that speaks volumes about just humility, ability to learn, or willingness to learn, willingness to onboard new material. I think if you're one thing I say about people generally, or like to ask people, is what have you changed your mind on in the last year? And if the answer is
dude,
nothing,
I'm so glad you said that.
Not learned anything in the last year, right? And if your curriculum hasn't changed since 1987, you probably need to take a look at it and take a look at where the industry and the where firearms technique is now, because in a way there's nothing new under the sun, but in another way some things have evolved and we have figured out more efficient, effective ways to do certain things. Ruled out some techniques as just not quite as effective as others. If your curriculum hasn't evolved, if you haven't evolved as an instructor, or if you're just doing things because that's the way we've always done them, that's probably a sign of a bad instructor to me. Willingness to adapt your curriculum, adapt your attitudes and yourself and your opinions, I would say probably the heart of the matter of being a good versus a not great instructor.
Well, that excludes basically most of the law enforcement and military instructors I've had.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that is, I completely agree. The willingness to change your opinion on things and admit when you're right shows that you prioritize the truth over your ego. And man, that is like a mark of someone you can trust when they tell you something. Because you never know, like, are you telling me this just because you're locked into your own way of thinking, or you have your ego here, or are you telling me this because you actually do prioritize the truth and you're willing to lay yourself down in search of that? I mean, that's
that kind of shows me that what's in the best interest of the student, what the student is going to walk away with the best chances of success for, is more important to you than how you look based on, you wrote in your last book in 1993 that X technique is the way. The fact that you're willing to say, if that wasn't right, or it was right at the time, but now because firearms design has changed, or we're not using a revolver, whatever.
Yeah.
Because you're able to say that now, maybe that's not the best way, the fact that you prioritize the best interest of the student over your own, ego or status or whatever, says a lot to me. Yeah.
It's a really good litmus test. Any others?
Just generally, I would say definitely Google your instructor and see what you see. Sometimes you'll see some bad don't go to this guy because of,
Mhm.
or this guy's class was X, Y, and Z. And I know certain things bother me. Time management is a big one. If I'm paying for 8 hours of class, I want 8 hours of training. But if I read a review and it's like, yeah, we got there at 8 and, he showed up at 8:05 and started setting up the range. We actually went hot at 9:10. That's probably not a class, and we took an hour and a half
Mhm.
lunch. It's probably not a class I want to spend my money. I just like, it may be a great class. I know I'm going to be frustrated with, just with the time. That is a huge thing I recognize in myself, that I don't have the patience
Mhm.
or the tolerance to deal with. Or, there may be things like that for you that, uh, you just don't want to go to this guy's class because X, Y, or Z. If someone hasn't trained with another instructor in the last 10 years, probably don't want to go to them. The best
Yeah.
instructors in the world are training with other people, you know, every year, if not
Yeah.
much more
I'd
frequently.
say 10 years is pretty generous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you haven't trained with anybody else in 2 or 3 years, you probably want to question that instructor yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually thinking of, I was talking to Rich about this the other day. So I did a video with Dusty. Well, we did a podcast.
Yeah.
And then I did a video where we went to the range and he ran me through his neuro
Yeah.
training. And basically, like, I'm just like the student. So he's running me through and I'm asking questions. And it's a little bit longer form video. It's going to be probably about 45, 55 minutes long. But I thought about it and I was like, what, this could be like a series where I like go to different instructors, and it gives them publicity and airtime or whatever on my channel, and then two, it gives my audience basically a free taste of like whatever that instructor does, and so I'll kind of live vicariously through me as a student, because most people would prefer to watch training as opposed to go do training. But yeah, I'd like go and like basically try out different instructors and have them run me through whatever flavor instruction they do and ask questions and be the student. And I don't need air quotes for that. Be the student. And yeah, so I think that I completely agree. Like going and seeing other people's style of instruction, and getting outside of your, stop drinking your own Kool-Aid is definitely a good sign as an instructor. So you said you're getting back earlier. You mentioned you're getting back into writing a little bit. Is that just for the blog or also for the book? Can you discuss that and like maybe talk about kind of some current projects you're working on?
Yeah. So I'm hot and heavy on a book right now. I'm kind of undecided on the title, but I'm up to. This thing is going to be I think the limit on Kindle Direct Publishing is 800 pages. I don't know if I'll approach that, but this is basically it's the book that I wanted as 16-year-old me. Here's the list of stuff to master before you start out on a life of adventure, or just the stuff you need to master to be a competent individual throughout your life. So there's a chapter 1 on basically health and wellness and mental health, fitness, that sort of stuff. Diet, exercise, sleep. Second chapter I think is on. So I try to mix it up between like skills and equipment type stuff. There's a chapter on EDC stuff. Chapter on financial preparedness, which I think is just hugely overlooked, and some things I wish I had been planning for in my 20s. There's a chapter on mobility, how to take care of your vehicle, change your own oil, just stuff like it's basically a dad advice, how to be a man book for this. Again, stuff I wish I'd have had at 16 years old. Like, here's this big book, learn all this stuff, and you're going to be way ahead. You're freed up to learn all this other stuff when you get into these schools and whatever. You don't have to worry about this side stuff that you should already know. Very long chapter on first aid, chapter on digital security, chapter on physical security, chapter on firearms, chapter on just being an effective communicator or a I think I call it how to be effortlessly charming, how to be a communicator in comfortable in various situations. There's a big section in there on how to attend a wedding, how to, be a good house guest, how to be a good host. Yeah, but I don't know. Like, I don't know if I want to call this a legacy project. Basically, the information I've a lot of which has been learned through trial and error that I want to pass on, that I want to, how to be a, real life modern day James Bond, for lack of a better term.
That's cool. That sounds like an awesome project. Are you like, how far into that are you? Like, are you,
I think I'm about 220,000 words into it. Yes, it's
man, yeah. Yeah. And so did you self-publish, the security guide as well? The complete
yeah, we
privacy.
did, and those were actually successful beyond, beyond my wildest dreams. Like this book, I don't like it. I could see it being successful. Or I could see it being a total like snoozer. Like I doubt anyone's going to read this thing cover to cover, but just because it's so broad. But I don't know. It's just I've wanted to write this book since I was like 25 years old, but I didn't have the knowledge or the experience to write it back then. So it's kind of a passion project of how to be a competent man, how to be a man among men, how to be learn all the stuff so you're like you'll be fine in any situation if you know how to do all this stuff. Kind of book that comes from living like a lifestyle with a lot of broad backgrounds and interests. And yeah,
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. How long have you been doing your blog?
This one since 2019, so a little over 5 years.
Okay. And
I also started, I don't know if you've ever run across it. I started in 2016, started a blog called revolverguy.com. It's still active, still putting out content every week, although it's not me doing it now. And a blog that's now long gone called operational-security.com. That was my security and privacy blog that, like, now that I'm kind of getting back into this, may come back in some form or fashion. But yeah.
And then you and Rich did Over the Peak podcast,
Yeah, Across
right?
the Peak. Yeah,
Across
we did
the
that
Peak,
podcast for about a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of a fun little diversion.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Well, I mean, this has been great. I mean, there's so many different topics we went over that I think it would be valuable to the listener that, I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing all this because there's really, really good information in here. We kind of talked about this a little bit, but where can people find you or get more information if they want to like follow you or whatever?
Okay, yeah, no social media, but my blog is Swift Silent Deadly, all one word, swiftsilentdeadly.com. That's where you can get in touch with me, where you can find me.
Awesome. I'll have it in the show notes and the description on YouTube. So
awesome.
You guys check it out. Well, Justin, again, just thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been great talking with you. And guys, thank you so much for watching. And as always, train to a higher standard.